So anxiety really comes up on our spiritual journey, especially when we're experiencing these big kind of energy influxes and shifts, because what's happening is those fears, right? The limiting beliefs, these perceptions of ourselves that we held on to so tightly, they're beginning to be illuminated. And so when we are basically being in a way forced to see them, right? We are very aware. It's like heightened in our experience. So one of the ways I like to perceive anxiety is we'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to the perception of anxiety in a minute. Let me get this message out first. So hang on, there's something that wants to release, and I released through burping and yawning, and a burp wants to come out. Okay, that was a pretty big one. Okay, so anxiety. If we allow ourselves to really tune into the feeling of anxiety, and I know that can be frightful for us, but if we really allow ourselves to tune into the feeling of anxiety, it's really our body trying to alert us, right? It's trying to alert us that something here is amiss. Something here isn't it's not good, right? It's not in my alignment. It's not in my, something's amiss. And the way that I really like to describe this is either a choice we are considering, a thought we are entertaining, or an idea that's moving through our consciousness is not in alignment with our higher self. Our higher self is like genuinely trying to send us a signal that this is not serving you. And it starts to get increasingly intense the more that we start to believe in the fear, the more that we start to believe in the limiting belief, the more that we start to believe in that thought or that choice that we think is going to turn into something in worst case scenario. And for some of us that experience anxiety on like a very big scale, we've really taken on collective fear from people that we grew up with, and from people in our surroundings, and from people that we haven't quite properly learned how to have those energetic boundaries with. And so it's like a signal from your higher self saying, hey, let's shift through this. It's not saying to ignore it. It's not saying to try to outthink it. It's not saying to try to pretend like it's not there, but to really acknowledge and say, okay, what am I thinking about right now? What is going on in my mind that my body is making me feel that is untrue? And it's always fear-based in some way, right? It's always fear-based in some way. But it's easier than you think to identify, because what's going on in your mind? What is the permeating thought as this feeling is coming up? And most of us have a loop. Most of us have a loop that comes up as soon as we start feeling that, especially if you start getting into the side of that emotion where it starts feeling overwhelming. Where does your mind go to? Does it literally go to the thought that you feel like you're dying? Does it go to the thought that somebody's going to come and force their will upon you? Is it that what's another one, spirit? That you're not going to be able to handle whatever situation is coming up, right? So really giving yourself the permission to identify that. And then you can start building the ability to move through this. So you acknowledge it. You say, okay, right? I hear this thought. I hear that we're ultimately afraid of death. There's a fear of dying there. That's coming up, because that's when we like go to that bam, right? When we go to that absolute worst case scenario. That's a fear of death. There's the fear of not having control, right? Not having control. And then there's this fear that I won't be able to handle it, right? So what is the limitless belief that we can begin to teach ourselves to have to affirm when we start really experiencing these things? So we'll start. We'll go full Monty. We'll start with that last one, the fear of death. We, on a soul level, deeply understand that we are eternal. We understand that when this physical vessel has finished this journey, we don't cease to be. We continue on in a way that may not be exactly the same as this physical vessel, but our soul, our consciousness, our awareness is unending. It is eternal. And one of the ways that we can start to unwind that attachment to the fear of death is creating a connection with our soul, creating a connection with that eternal part of who we are. But also doing work where we no longer identify as our body. Now, this is not to ignore your body or to negate your body, but to recognize that your body is a physical vessel, right? Your body is your communication device here on the physical plane to allow you to communicate to others, to allow you to have these really beautiful physical experiences, and it communicates to you. But it's not who you are, right? And there's this, if you have not watched this movie, I highly recommend that you watch it. It is called... Come on, Spirit. What Dreams May Come, with Robin Williams. And there is this really beautiful, beautiful conversation that he has with, you could call it a spirit guide, when he transitions, where they go through this process of like, okay, so what is this, right? You're not your body. You don't exist in your leg. You're not in your heart. You're not your brain. Because you're not your body anymore. So what are you? Who are you? Right? So we move through this process of learning that, yes, my body is a vessel for me. My body is a beautiful tool for me in this experience, but it is ultimately not who I am. And this is so helpful too in healing our body misperceptions, any problems that we have with our body, with it being somehow a measurement of who I am, and moving into that eternality. One of my base spiritual teachings is called A Course in Miracles, and that material actually has daily lessons in it. And over 40 of the lessons repeat the statement, I am not a body, I am free. For I am still as God created me. And it's literally to help you stop identifying as the body. Do you remember the movie The Professor from Seattle that meets a soulmate on his journey to South America? I do not. But it takes repetition because we have been conditioned as humans in this particular paradigm of our experience to really identify as our body. We are really taught that the body is who we are. And ultimately, that is why we are, there's a little bit of the fear of the unknown with death that's tied in there as well. But ultimately, it is this fear that this physical vessel is who I am. So when it ceases to be, I cease to be. But that is not the truth. And there are many, 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 many accounts of near-death experiences, as well as individuals we would now view as ascended masters that talk about they really felt as though they had a choice. There's a choice. We genuinely are an active creator in our experience. It is our will. It's our time is never going to come when we are not truly time for it. You had a cardiac arrest and your son sent me back. I would love to hear about your experience, Faith. I would love to hear about your experience. I am very fascinated by those. I'm very fascinated by those. But I want to full circle with these anxiety fears that we touched on. So creating an affirmation that feels powerful for you, that You may not fully believe it yet, but you have the willingness to believe that it's true about not associating as your body. So I am eternal is one. I am infinite is another. I am unlimited is another. And ultimately, with our body, we want to remind ourselves that I am safe. I am safe. No matter what my body is experiencing, no matter what symptoms it's giving me, I am safe. And I will be okay through this experience. I am safe. So that's very small, touching upon that fear of death idea. Very, very small. Definitely Groundhog's Day. Yes. I love Groundhog's Day as a spiritual movie. Okay, so let's go on to that next anxiety fear, which was not being in control. Not being in control. So this is kind of one of those like mental processes where we kind of come to a logical conclusion about it, right? The only thing that we're ever in control of in our experience is us. The way we're thinking, it's me. That's the only thing I'm ever in control of in my life. And so when we feel out of control, especially if our body seems to be doing something that we don't have control over, that brings a lot of fear for us. The temptation and the like desire and the need to feel in control is a trauma-based response. In some way in our life, there was an experience that made us feel as though we had no control. And this looks different for everybody. Everybody's experience of that is entirely different. And we're going to go back to the comparison note. Do not compare what you experienced as trauma to somebody else's experience of trauma. The whole point is it created a fear in you, and that's a trauma. There's no measurement scale of trauma, okay? And there's a lot of temptation of healers out there and people on the spiritual journey to measure your trauma against someone else's and then negate yourself because somebody else had it worse. Don't fucking matter. It doesn't matter, okay? It's your journey. It's your journey, okay? So something in your experience brought up the fear, right? That you were not in control of what was going on around you. And one of the ways that this happens to us is just over controlling parents. And it doesn't even need to be in a like really demanding overbearing way. But parents that chose our extracurricular activities for us, parents that really micromanaged our schedule, helicopter parents, or completely absent parents, right? Where there was no sense of routine in life whatsoever, where there was no sense of structure and it was just utter chaos. You never knew what to expect in the day, right? So it doesn't matter which end of the spectrum caused you to have this desire to be in control. The point is that fear is there, that the fear is present. I do readings. I was going to do some tonight, but we'll see. We shall see. This seems to be a conversation that needs to be heard tonight. Okay, so I am going to encourage you. I am going to encourage you to spend time doing that shadow work to help you uncover the ultimate kind of root of why you have the desire to be in control. And another way that this happens is you had a parent that was just like OCD over controlling to the max, right? Like everything's super duper duper scheduled, meals planned out to a T, right? And so you get this perception that that's the way life is meant to be lived. And if your experience is not that when you're an adult, it feels out of control, even though it's completely normal to not live completely planned out to the max. So the encouragement to really, oh, thank you, Joelle, to really allow yourself, not allowed to make your own choices at all is a huge one. Huge one. That's the overbearing, over controlling parent, right? So getting to that root and allowing yourself the opportunity to make choices that are going to affirm that you are now in control in terms of being in control of what you have control over, right? We cannot control anything external to us. We can't control other people. We can't control other people's choices. We can't control when they show up or when they leave or what they're going to eat, right? The only thing that we are in control of in our day is our own choices. It's what I am choosing to do in any given moment. And so what I am in control of, again, my thoughts, my thinking. Someone's in so much resistance to that. You are in control of your thoughts, even though your thoughts can feel very overwhelming. There's practices to help us feel more in control of the monkey mind, the monkey brain. It's not saying that is not a gift, because it is really beautiful. It's a way that spirit can communicate with you when we have monkey mind. But you are ultimately in control. There's always choice. So you may not feel in control of the kind of thoughts that are coming in, but it is your choice, and you are in control over which ones you focus on, over which ones you give your awareness and your power to. So again, I'm going to be really harping on the affirmation work for the anxiety, okay? Discovering, I love that. Oh, thank you. Any gift that interacts with me, insane. Thank you for the gift. I don't think you've been here before, so thank you. All the gifts that interact with me just bubble up my inner child energy. So creating affirmations that feel empowering to you, okay? Remind you of the power of choice. Remind you of the power of what you put your awareness on. I would not recommend I am in control. It is ultimately true. But since if that feels good to you, please absolutely use it. But just to find one that's a little bit deeper, right? I'm allowed to make my own choices if you weren't allowed to do that as a child. I choose where I place my awareness. I am empowered. I'm empowered to make choice. Yeah, that makes me feel aggressive, right? And so sometimes we need that assertiveness, right? Especially if we were conditioned to be very meek and very go with the flow and very just appease everybody around us. Standing in that power can feel aggressive. Actually, it does feel aggressive. I'm so glad, Ruth. There is I'll post it on my Patreon because I know you'll see it there, Lindsay. Let me write myself a note so I remember. There's this really beautiful statement about just like when you've been a people pleaser your whole life, essentially saying, Leslie, I'm sorry, Leslie. I've been calling you Lindsay, haven't I? Thank you for correcting me. Dang it. I hate when I get people's names wrong. Oh, thank you, Leslie. Essentially, like when we've been a people pleaser our whole life, when we start affirming what we want, it feels very aggressive. It feels very asserting, and it's not though, right? So the I am in control might be a really good one for you. But let me write myself a note to remember to post this so that you can see those quotes. I think it is aggressive. That is actually the word that's used. Okay. So oh, I'm not in a reading. I am, we're just doing collective conversation, but Lindsay happened to really be vibing with this message. I just called you Lindsay again. This is going to be hard for me to break. Leslie. Okay. So discovering that affirmation, when you find that core thing that really is I know, that really is that core thing, that caused you to have that desire to want to control, to discover that affirmation. Now, the third little thing we were talking about in terms of anxiety, before we get to the full Monty talk about it, was that you aren't going to be able to handle the situation, right? That somehow you are unworthy, that somehow you are not good enough is ultimately what that belief is, right? That you are going to be given something that you aren't ready for. You're going to be given something that's out of your knowledge base, right? That you're somehow going to be underprepared for it. And there's many spiritual teachings. No, I want to call you your real name, Leslie. There are many spiritual teachings that help us build this. I'm going to recommend this book for you, Leslie. Oops. Cards are flying everywhere. This is really beautiful for a lot of different spiritual foundations, but it's called You Are Enough. You Are Enough by Panache Desai, revealing the soul to discover your power, potential, and possibility. I know, I am going to do readings. As soon as we finish this, but You Are Enough. This is a really, really, really wonderful book. It's not so much in what we're talking about right now, but just a lot of different, really beautiful teachings in there. So, hey, Ricky. So these affirmations are pretty generic. You hear people talking about this a lot, right? I am enough. I am enough. That's a big one. I am enough. Why did I just go blank? I am more than enough. And understanding that any experience that comes to you, anything that's unfolding around in your experience, it would not be happening if you weren't prepared to handle it. And the only thing that gets in our way of feeling confident, of feeling as though I can step forward and really handle what is unfolding, is a limiting belief and a fear. And so, why are we going blank, Spirit? I would not be in a situation that I'm not ready for. I am ready. I am prepared. I am guided. Yes, of course you read that today. Of course you read that today. So the more that we build trust in these things that we hear people talking about, right? And this, John, that's very true. Hearing it doesn't make it so. Experience is definitely required. And that's why the message has been coming through for quite a while, right? Now is the time for us to be living these things, right? We read about it. We think about it. We start feeling emotions we haven't allowed ourselves to feel. We feel our way through it. And then the action comes. And the action in these cases is really allowing ourselves to experience what is unfolding in our bodies, to experience what is unfolding around us, and to be mindful and aware of what am I thinking about what's going on. Am I dwelling in those limiting beliefs? Am I dwelling in the fear? Am I dwelling in that shadow aspect? Or am I really allowing myself to become aware of the fact that that is fear? And I am a beautiful being of light and love and power. And I choose to bring my energy and my awareness and my attention to the truth of who I am. And I love that. I am ready and more than enough for everything in divine timing. That's really beautiful. I really love that. So the last thing I want to say about anxiety. If it's something that we have experienced repeatedly in our life, we have a tendency to immediately start labeling a sensation in our body as anxiety before anything is even happening. And this is something that the more you practice, the more you can begin to take the power back from that word, and stop having it feel as though it's something very overwhelming. But the experiences and the feelings that I have right before I channel, past Melissa would have labeled it as anxiety. My heart can start to beat real quick. It can even feel like palpitations sometimes. I even get a little bit physically shaky sometimes. My breathing will want to change. It will feel like I maybe can't catch my breath as well. I get flashes of either very cold or very hot. And the like butterfly knots, stomach stuff too. So the more that I kind of zoomed out, right, and caught myself before I started saying I'm feeling anxious, and started just tuning into the feeling, right? So kind of creating this stopper in my process of thinking where I don't immediately label the sensation I'm feeling in my body as an emotion. I don't start immediately telling myself I'm feeling anxious. I say, my heart's kind of beating a little bit quick. What's that about? What's going on in my body? Can I tune into this? Was there an emotion maybe that was coming up that I was starting to feel in my heart? Was there a memory? Yes, beautiful Tipsy Tarot. I am experiencing shakiness. I am experiencing heat. I am experiencing all of those sorts of things, the fast heartbeat. I am experiencing my mind is racing, right? All of those sorts of things. Some of us get the like thunder ears where you feel your heartbeat in your ears, right? So yes, John, the trained responses to trauma, absolutely. So we're unlearning those things, and part of that is to, even if you do, so what's going to happen is now that we've talked about this, you're going to start catching and be aware of when you start saying, wow, I'm feeling anxious, right? I have anxiety right now. You're going to notice that you're saying it, and you can say, okay, well, is this? What if it's not? What if there's something else going on? Because the subtle thing that happens when we immediately start to label a feeling or a sensation in our body with an emotion is we are unconsciously pulling up memories of past experiences when we felt that emotion. And the deepest unconscious emotions that we begin to feel when we do that are the memories that we haven't yet fully healed, that we haven't yet fully even brought to the surface. And so we start processing and feeling a bunch of things that are very out on the edges of our consciousness, and we start to feel it more. So I would definitely encourage you to try to refrain from labeling those physical sensations. And I'm very mindful. I actually use the word feeling and the word emotion to mean two different things. The feeling is the physical sensation in the body. It's what my physical vessel is telling me. It's literally the physicality, the feeling, right? The feeling in the body. The emotion is the mental attachment I have to that feeling. It's what I tell myself about that feeling. And this is the way that we can really begin to release those experiences and release those emotions, because often we are labeling something an emotion that isn't really accurate to what's going on in our experience.